Hello everyone and welcome to the first ever episode of Spilling the Tea with Affinity. Our special guest for our very first episode is the legend himself, MTGMuddstah, or Andrew. Hello!
Hey. How you guys doing?
We're doing very well, and as always, my name is Alex.
My name is Martin. So, first of all, before we get things started, do you have your tea with you?
I do. I'm prepared. Got the pot right here.
Brilliant.
Made some biscuits, so we're good for the day. It's just an English breakfast mix from Tetley, so
A classic?
Very classic.
it's the closest we can find that my wife will drink. So
Well, I've got St. Clement, so I apologise to any Walking Dead fans that might find that unpleasant. As a memory, I'm sorry.
And blueberry and elderflower for myself. But that is enough for the tea. We're going to start things off with the question of the day.
Yep.
Which is, should Planeswalkers be legal as commanders? Now, with the latest set for War of the Spark, they've added 37 new Planeswalkers to the roster.
Yes.
And obviously we've got hundreds of Planeswalkers throughout Magic history. Are they too powerful to be commanders? Are they okay? Let's see what you think.
What do you think, Andrew? Do you think Planeswalkers are okay to be commanders, all of them?
I mean, all of them. No, I mean we already have the few that are available, like the 5 monocolored ones. I think.
Yeah.
Like Doretti and so forth and so on. I think in some cases they might be too strong, but it's hard to say because Teferi, the mono blue Teferi, is arguably a very, very competitive, very, very strong Planeswalker, and that came out of a Planeswalker EDH commander set. So, like, who's to say?
My always argument is the case of if they're the only most powerful Planeswalkers I can think of are the ones that are already commanders, such as Teferi or Aminatou. Both are very combo heavy. There's not a Planeswalker I can snap to memory and think, oh yes, that one is too broken, but Teferi's okay.
Yeah, and the Planeswalkers which are powerful in other formats, such as Liliana of the Veil, Jason the Mind Sculptor, wouldn't be as good in a multiplayer format between target opponents as
I'll pay 3 mana, sacrifice a creature. Okay, it's now dead. Oh, that wasn't very good for 3 mana.
I think where it's going to be the point of contention is if a commander has any way of reliably tutoring things. So let's say Tezzeret the Seeker. Mono blue targets, he gets to find an artifact. I think it's his starting loyalty is like 4 or 5.
5.
So already we're in like Paradox Engine kind of level of power there. So having that in your command zone where you can just race to get him out as fast as you can, -5 him, get Paradox Engine, presumably you'll have a bunch of rocks to cast up anyway. That to me can be a little bit, that's a bit of a dangerous spot. On the other hand, like Hulati, the green white-red, I have no problem with her as a commander. I don't foresee it being a real issue or breaking anything. It's just, I think, like, reliable ways to do very powerful things. If it's got something like that we might have to watch if they decide to move in that direction.
Yeah.
The big one everyone seems to always come up to is the ban not Teferi. Tamiyo. I was about to say the bunny lady, but Tamiyo works as well. Because she is in band, she can ramp, she can shoot her up doubling season, and then has the blue to protect it, so she can very easily ultimate the turn she comes down. But then the counter I always have to that is the fact that when the Rules Committee is totally fine with having Mikaeus as a commander and Triskelion in the 99, which does say I win the game right now, having an Omniessence and drawing 3 cards doesn't say I win right now and requires a lot more setup than that 2-card combo does.
Yeah.
So why is one more broken than the other?
Yeah, exactly. And,
that's a good point. I also want to come back because you said Omniscience and I say Omniscience and I get shit for it. Hilarious. People, like, there's going to be 3 different pronunciations going on and we're all going to be wrong. So that's fantastic.
Wouldn't be the first time we butchered a name of a card.
Oh my God. So mean. So mean. So mean. Yeah, sorry. Please continue.
So I'm just saying, there's also commanders that have a lot scarier abilities, like Sorin Markov. Making a life total 10 when it starts at 40 is, to me, more powerful than having Omniscience.
That is very funny.
And other commanders like Khan that go up by 4 for a plus make them harder to deal with.
This is true, but at the same time, Karn doesn't do anything. He might hate on one person, but at the same time, he's 7 colourless mana, and your deck has to then be colourless. The reason why Creature Karn and Kozilek are so popular colourless commanders is because they do give some inherent card value. You can just ramp into Kozilek and then draw back a full grip.
Yep, a good point.
Right.
A good point.
But do you think there's any pros to it being Planeswalkers as commanders? Anything you think, well, that is a good idea?
I mean, I think the most recent iteration of Planeswalkers shows how interesting a deck can be when there are commanders / Planeswalkers built around a specific theme. Like, I like Lord Windgrace. I think it's really interesting that there's a Jund land-based commander who's got Planeswalkers, who is a Planeswalker, and he's got 3 different abilities, and they're all quite good. That being said, I think the ones from Standard, what my major concern would be, they're not as focused. They typically tend to be a bit more generalized because they're supposed to see play in multiple formats. And as a result, that generalization can mean that people have abilities that have just kind of generic abilities that you see on cards, like +1 to draw a card, or like Thought Scour on a +1. And that can be a bit more unbalanced, we'll say.
Yeah.
My idea of the fact that it's good is the fact that the biggest colours that everyone, and me, always take a huge sigh against is stuff like mono white, mono red, or Boros. Leaving apart Feather for the time being. I do think it would be nice if they could run stuff like any of the Elspeths or Nahiri for some essential rumbling through the deck to try and find some win condition as a bit of a help to them.
Right.
Which, if someone wants to play out the 6 mana Elspeth, the good Elspeth, I would still say that's totally fine because it's still mono white. You're still heavily crippled because of that.
Yeah. And certain Planeswalkers, like the new Tezzeret,
New Tezzeret,
would be problematic, I think, with his artifacts. Creatures and Planeswalkers have affinity for artifacts.
I would purposefully kill that player first.
Yeah, because he would always... I don't know, would the command attacks be ridden out by the affinity? Because you're still reducing the cost by 2?
Oh.
Not sure whether the rules have come out on that one. But that would make it so he's always just a blue and a black if that's the case, which...
Yeah, if you have enough artifacts.
But I think his ability is only relevant when he's on the field. Like, it's a static ability, so the card has to actually be present.
Yes.
So I think in terms of command text, that won't be a workaround.
It's not like Eminence. It's not an Eminence ability.
Yeah, exactly. Or like a cost reduction or things like that. But I think the static abilities, while fantastic and really exciting, because I really like a lot of the cards with it. Like, I think it's Zhang Yun. It was the dual deck, and now he's the mono green and common one. That card's fantastic. Like, all creatures of +1/+1 counters, tap per mana. Sign me up. But having a static ability that can be as good as, like you said, Tezzeret in the command zone can be, again, kind of like, that could be a little bit too much.
Yeah.
While you're in the new Tom of the Uncommon Commanders, I do love the new Kiora. She's lovely.
Oh, draw a card.
Yeah, draw a card for playing a big thing. Ramp yourself into another big thing by untapping a permanent for 3 mana.
The new Nissa, which says whenever you tap a forest for mana, add green to your mana pool. Just having double mana, which is out. It's really powerful abilities.
Yeah, even Ashok. Ashok is insane. For an uncommon, I did double check. I was like, no way, this is uncommon. And he's just, they're incredible.
Yeah.
She's the only one I think would actually see play in CDH. Of all the ones that went, you can't search your library, that stops a lot of decks.
Well, I think Teferi might see a bit of play as well. Teferi, he's got 3 as well, and he does a lot of kind of unfair, one-sided kind of shenanigans that...
everything has to be sorcery for your opponent.
Yeah.
So you get to counter everything.
You decide.
If they did, for argument's sake, legalise Planeswalkers as commanders, do you think they would have to rectify the ban list? Do you think there'd have to be a separate ban list for Planeswalker decks? Because there would be certain cards that would not only increase in price, but also become much more powerful than they were ought to be.
I think that's probably one of the deciding factors as why they haven't allowed them at this point. I can't see them doing a specific ban list just for having a commander that's a planeswalker. Having to keep track of 2 lists, like that's going to be the MTGO situation all over again, which is just not knowing which list to follow, not knowing which list is legal. Ideally, everything should be as streamlined as possible, which is like why they do all of the mulligan rules are across all formats. Everything's the same. So I would imagine it's more just likely if they do go with it, things will get banned because just some cards are so much better with them, and it would be probably a mistake not to.
Yeah. Well, say we've jumped into the mind of Sheldon Murphy. What would you ban if Planeswalkers were commanders, or would you ban anything?
That's a good question. I think it's going to be so hard to sort of focus on one card, mostly because each commander, especially if you're playing different planeswalkers, are going to want different things. I think it's going to become a matter of which of the planeswalkers ends up being the predominant one, like the one that everyone plays, or the one that's like it's almost like the Prophet of Kruphix, where like you're focused into that color because there's no reason not to be. And as a result, that kind of card will get banned. So maybe if you're only playing blue-green or X-blue-green, something like Doubling Season, because it can cause your commander to instantly come out and go off and get your ultimate, that might be banned. But it's hard to say. There's too much of a unknown, I think, at this point to sort of really be able to say one card specifically, like this will be the main problem.
Yeah. I would like to circle back to something you said earlier, when you said about the fact that the Planeswalker decks have been designed for a specific environment. They have really obviously been designed for the commander environment. The first time I noticed that was that both Estrid and Lord Windgrace cannot be ultimated with Doubling Season out. They still need a turn to be alive. And the second I saw that, I was like, they've genuinely taken that into consideration. There's been a conversation had where someone's brought up Doubling Season and went, right, these guys can't ultimate. If they're in green, they can't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's it.
If you had Sarkhan Unbroken and you brought him in a Doubling Season, you then find every dragon in your library and just put it onto the battlefield.
That is a 2-card combo that pretty much does say win the game.
Yeah, well, that's it. And it's just like, it's stuff like that where, again, like it depends on the commander. I think Doubling Season might be something that's on people's radars as a result, just because it's such a clear inclusion to any commander that has a green in it. But let's say, what's a good planeswalker that could be a good commander? I guess like you were saying, the mono white Elspeth. I can't think of a specific card in mono white or an artifact that would just push her over the top and make her just so incredibly broken.
I don't know if you saw, there was a huge Twitter thread that I followed for a while, then gave up with it, where so many people were arguing that if Planeswalkers were legalized, that would be the push to ban Soul Ring in the format. Because that then makes stuff like the mono blue Tezzeret and all untapping shenanigans that a lot of Planeswalkers do have, that then pushes that card into the realms of not being okay. Like, a lot of people don't want Soul Ring in the format anyway, but that inclusion of then you now have a lot more availability to ramp into a now higher costing commander with more powerful effects. That would cause the rules committee to say, right, that card is now too good with new commanders.
I think that I don't agree with that argument. I mean, we have planeswalkers who are already very strong. Again, Teferi is a notable inclusion to that. Daretti functions incredibly well with early mana rocks. Everything works well with early mana rocks. But I think the deciding factor is it's in the 99. You have no guarantee that it'll be in your opener. They've changed the mulligan rules to such an extent that you can no longer partial Paris. So you can't really guarantee you have that ideal smooth opener without risking going lower and lower and lower. Whether or not the London rule moves forward, that could change things again. From what I'm seeing online, it very much promotes a different style of deck building, one that I don't necessarily agree with in formats where 4 cards of the same type are the norm. But how that would affect EDH, I don't know. I haven't done any testing on it.
You see no Grenzo, I'll tell you that.
We've tried it with Grenzo on the table, and it does become a little bit chaotic in the early game when they know.
Knowing what you have on the bottom is a huge thing for that kind of deck. So that's, I could see that being a problem. But yeah, I don't think so. I don't think we haven't banned Sol Ring yet. I don't think that this is going to be the push to do it again.
No, I don't think so. But it was something people kept bringing up about it.
Yeah, I think every time there's a big change, people are like, ban Sol Ring. That's the universal answer to fix everything.
And if cards, like if Planeswalkers did become legal, and you'd see a shift in the cards being played to compensate for that. So spot removal might be changed for ones that include Planeswalker removal.
Yeah, so like Bedevil or Dreadball,
Hero's Downfall, things like that.
Or the new double black one that got spoiled a couple days
ago. The Elder
ago.
Spell.
Yeah, destroying a number of Planeswalkers.
So the format would change to compensate for them, and would bounce back out again soon enough.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. I mean, and also with EDH, there's such an abundance of, instead of just Planeswalker, but just destroy target permanent. That it's just I don't think that they're that much of a threat. The biggest thing I've ever found with the Planeswalker in the command zone is that they artificially inflate a player's life total, because instead of attacking the player themselves, oftentimes people will commit resources to dealing with the Planeswalker, and that's stuff that could be used to take the player out. So like something like an Atraxa deck. Atraxa, like they're going to play a critical mass, well, assuming they're playing Super Friends. You're going to be spending a lot of time trying to deal with their stuff, and they're not getting hit. And for every hit that they don't take, it's like almost like that much of a life buffer.
Yeah, that's a very good way of looking at it.
A lot of things I have seen as well, the fact that some people say that if we have Planeswalkers, that slows the format right down. Because I used to play, and might be building again, my Atraxa Super Friends deck, and that deck played a total of 3 creatures, 2 of which transformed into Planeswalkers. The only other creature was Deep Glow Skate for the obvious reasons.
I still have nightmares about it. Just flickering it.
The rest of the deck was just board wipes and removal, which does affect and made the game go a lot slower until you know there are 3 Planeswalkers that are going to Ultimate. But then, to me, as you say, Marn, I do think the format then bounces back. It's like, okay, if someone's playing a slow game, then run Perforos, run Saskia Infect, punish them for being that slow. And as you say, Andrew, hit them.
Yeah.
They can't plus a Planeswalker if they're dead.
Don't ignore the player. Like, don't ignore the Planeswalkers. But like you said, if the player's dead, they're not casting anymore. Like it's a non-point at that point.
Well, that's what I've always found with my Windgrace deck, is that when he comes in, 9 times out of 10 I'll use his plus ability to make him able to survive a few hits, because he has such high loyalty at that point. Whereas if you're Aminato deck, if you minus her, then she's on 3, is it, loyalty?
Yeah,
she's not enough to survive really from anything hitting her.
Aminato, I tried her a lot, but I don't think she thrives in a CDH scene, a 4-turn format. But in a normal casual format, like below an 8, unless you are going to be that guy who combos out in a casual format, then it's just not worth it, because she will just die.
Now, there is a format which is fairly new at the moment, but is picking up traction, called Oathbreaker, where you have to have a Planeswalker as your commander. So that might impact, if Wizards are thinking of making Planeswalkers legal as commanders, that might impact their thought process if it's tested out.
I think the opposite. I think they would say that, rather than changing EDH, I think they would then, like they did with Brawl, introduce Oathbreaker as a format, and instead take it under and say, right, you want to play a Planeswalker commander? Here's where you can go do that. Like when people try to make
Tiny Leaders
a thing, or they try to make other restrictions on commander, so they made stuff like Brawl. It's like, we only want to play with these cards. Well, here's Brawl for you.
But the issue of that is both Tiny Leaders and Brawl fell under very quickly. Commander's an already established format that isn't going anywhere.
But then would they want to change it if it's established format?
That's the big question.
Yeah, but I mean, they're also, like, Tiny Leaders was a variant on Commander, though. That's, like, it wasn't its own separate entity. It took the same kind of rules, changed them slightly. I haven't followed Oathbreaker. I tend to be very hands-off when it comes to budding formats, we'll call. Things that are new. I know a lot of people get into them, and I think that's great, and I think it's fantastic that people are creative enough to come up with a format. I tend to stick with ones that are recognized or have more of an established base. But I think if it were to go forward, I would probably say it's more likely that Oathbreaker would become its own separate format with its own ban list, which could then basically appease everyone who wants to play with Planeswalkers as commanders. They also get that, I think it's called a signature spell each. And then, sorry? No. I was going to say, and then they could also have their own separate ban list without having to kind of conflate the one that's already in existence for EDH.
And because of the rules change of Oathbreaker, with it's only a 60-card deck, a signature spell, and only 20 life total, they have quite clearly tested that into the ground very well, because their ban list is very much concerned with that. So there's no Soul Ring, no Moxes, stuff like Expropriate and Doomsday are banned for obvious reasons. And only certain commanders are also banned because, again, they can just outright win the game through their presence.
Right.
But other than that, I think I wouldn't be worried if they did make Planeswalkers as commanders. I would be more worried about the reaction that people would have, because then it would instigate maybe a lot of price spiking very suddenly, which might give people a sour taste, like stuff like all the Oath cards, especially Teferi's, Chain Veil, or Contagion Clasp and Contagion Engine. I imagine they would spike massively.
Probably more than they have. I mean, as soon as it was revealed that this was a Planeswalker heavy set, they all jumped up. I mean, that's the nature of the game and of speculators and of people who get excited by it too. I mean, you see a new card, you say, hey, I want to build around that. You go and you buy the cards, and like, unfortunately in this day and age, not everyone has the most unique ideas. So like, chances are if you decided I'm going to build Feather, and you come up with a bunch of like little kind of fun cards, someone else has, and it's just how it is. But I think people are going to react either way. I found that in my experience, people tend to be the most vocal when it's negative. You don't see a lot of Yelp reviews online when a restaurant is okay. You see a lot of Yelp reviews when it's fantastic or when it's absolute garbage. And people, especially with Magic, and if there's any kind of change, like the Tuck rule, my goodness, things were so divided with the Tuck. And my earbud is falling out. That's awful. We've now played with it for what, 2-3 years?
Yeah.
It's been around for a while.
Yeah.
And the sky hasn't fallen. The world hasn't ended. People are still playing. More people are playing EDH now than there were probably when Tuck was still a thing. So, who's to say?
I think it'll be okay going forward. Not if they did be okay. I think, again, as you say, people will react. I think people will react perfectly fine, but you will hear the negative a lot more, because great Kevin Hartlow, it's not cool to be positive right now, which sad but true.
Very, very sad.
But let's be positive. I think if they did, it'd be great. And as I say, what is it? The Rule 13 that the Rules Committee has. It's a casual format. You do you.
Yeah, that's it. If you have a play group and you can all agree that this is important to you as I'm talking, so this is a potential mistake. If you have friends and you can all agree that this is what you want to do, and you can come up with your own ban lists or cards you're not comfortable, and people already do. People don't play with Cycrypt. People don't play with Soul Ring. People don't do that. So if you do that, fantastic. The only thing is, though, like, bearing that in mind, if you go to a shop, you can't enforce your rules on other people.
No.
That's the only thing is that there needs to be sort of a unifying element to it.
Well,
but I'm sure.
Yeah, that's what they try and make the rules from the Rules Committee are. It's as long as you follow these, you can play anywhere in the world. But then if you want to go to a store and say, I'm in Boros, can I please play Nahiri, please?
Yeah.
I don't think, as long as you weren't recording it, we wouldn't really have a problem with that.
Well, that's it. I mean, I had a player who played Badoka Gardener, which is a non-legendary, but it flips to become legendary.
Yeah.
Like, it's one of the Kamigawa ones.
Yeah, I remember.
And I really want to play this. He's like, this is one of my favorite decks. And I was like, you know what? Like, let's do it. Like, this is, I'm willing to make that stretch. And he gave me like a bunch of good reasons to do it. And I was like, you know what? Okay, this is cool. And again, he followed all the other like rules and all the other things. So it's like this one little bending is exactly what EDH should be about. You should be able to sort of, with friends or with people you know, be comfortable enough to sort of bring it up to your playgroup and say, listen, I really want to do this. I think it would be a lot of fun. I think we'll all get a good laugh out of it. And then if you're all like on the same page, go for it. Like, do it.
Well, that's what people did with the Nephilims before the 4-color commanders.
Yeah. Oh,
exactly.
People wanted those to be legendary so much.
Yeah, well,
that's that good though, were they? It's just
they're pretty alright.
Some of them are better than others,
but yeah, absolutely right. I feel like this is what every conversation I ever have about Commander always comes down to: is talk to people in your play group. If you want to play them, go and play them, but definitely do have a conversation. Don't just sit down with that Tamiyo or that Tezzeret and demand that no, it's totally fine, and then win on turn 5.
You bend to my rules, not I'm going to bring it up to the group and talk to you guys about it. Yeah, it's about conversation and respect.
We have an unspoken kind of, not a rule, but an agreement in our group where if someone comes and combos off in turn 3, that's fine. But everyone else at the table is going to go after them first in the next game. So it's got to the point where people have infinite combos, everyone's okay with that, but they use it to finish off the game rather than to not have a game.
Yeah. And I think that's fair. And I think if people can play like that and not get salty or upset about it and things like that, I think that's a really healthy play group, and that's a good sign, because it means that like you value the time you're spending with your friends more than the individual winning. And I think that's a critical element to EDH, is that winning is a part of it, but you also need to recognize that there are 3 other people who are also at the table and want to do the same. Just because you don't this game doesn't mean you can't in the future. So just shrug it off, laugh, enjoy, move on, shuffle up, play again. Like that, just very simple. Keep it fun.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to ask a question in that case. We have derailed slightly, but I'm enjoying it.
Fine.
There was a great question that Josh Lee Quite asked Professor when he was on their podcast. Wow, liking myself to them, that's a big head. So I'll ask both of you, what percentage of games would you prefer to win, or would you like to win?
I mean, my current win rate is abysmal.
I don't
It's like 1 in 15, maybe. So, like, I'm pretty happy with it. Like, I mean, for me, things have changed so much in terms of my enjoyment of the game. I focus less on winning now and more on, because everything I do is almost always filmed. Everything, the best games for me now are the most interesting, when there's like a crazy play out of like no one was expecting, and an underdog story where like the person who's getting beat down stays at 1, stabilizes, comes back and wins. Like, those are incredible games. So if it means I lose to that, I'm always got a big smile on my face. I'm always like, you did it, like, well done. Like, that's a well-earned win. And like, I'm really glad we played this game to see this kind of like cool thing. And the same kind of thing, like if they've got a fun deck, something I've never seen before, fantastic. Like, I'm going to be super happy even if I lose.
Yeah, that's the best thing for me as well. When you sit down at a table and one of your friends pulls out a card that you haven't seen before, or you've no idea what it is, and you play it and think, or if they play a commander that is well played, but differently, so you think, hang on, this isn't going how I expected it to, and then something crazy happens, and you remember it more than the games where it's just player A destroys everyone without any effort. So, I totally agree with you on that point.
Yeah, and that's some of the best part about EDH. That's some of, like, it's the potential to go in expecting one thing and then the result being completely different.
Yeah.
I love it. It's so surprising, and just the interaction between one card and then if someone brings up their pet card that you've never seen before, and it can completely change the dynamic of everything, and you're just like, and it just changes everything. I keep saying that.
Well, that's something that you only really find in EDH, isn't it? There's the variety of cards that are actually good in the format, which you don't see many play anywhere else. Like there's druids in my set-on deck. Sorry, it's the thing that's happened now. There's druids in my set-on deck which are awful, but because they're a druid, they work really well with it. So no one else would bother playing them.
That's it. And it's fun.
Yeah, and just like I'm going to steer slightly back towards Planeswalkers, because otherwise this title's going to be a mess. That I always just saw Aminata as being a CDH commander until I saw someone using her as an Esper Super Friends commander, because you can blink your own walkers, which I didn't even think about.
Yep.
Which is kind of obvious. And then I changed mine to Esper Super Friends because it's actually funnier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you did that with Traxxas as well. You had a Traxxas deck that was just Super Friends, and you tried it as an effect and went, no, this isn't working.
Yeah.
So it's just trying different things and seeing what gets the best reaction out of the table.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
finding what works for your meta.
Yeah.
Exactly. And with all these new Planeswalkers coming out, even if they don't get made as commanders, they are still going to be seen play in the format. Like the one that I love, tying back into a video, some cross-promotion, of the new Vivian Reed Planeswalker, the 3-mana one. All your creatures have flash. That's great.
That's powerful.
It's like, I'm going to attack your Planeswalker. Are you sure about that?
You can try. We'll see how it works. I mean, I would say at this point, I would be very unsurprised if over a third of the cards that are being printed in War of the Spark do not see some, if not a level of fringe play in EDH. There is just so much good and balanced kind of like commons, uncommons, rares, and mythics that it seems like a really well-designed set.
Yeah.
And I'm very, very keen to sort of start dabbling with some of the cards and seeing how they go moving forward.
Oh, yeah.
What's the card you're most excited about?
Oh, it's so hard. I like the Domri. I'm thinking about putting that in Prosh just because it's a 3-mana ramp spell that makes it so you can't be countered, which when I play Prosh tends to happen often. Same thing with Animar. Ashiok probably in Dralnu. I mean, there are so many possibilities at this point. It's insane. It's just it's almost overwhelming at this point.
Yeah.
There's so many good cards. So many of the big X-blue spells, the X-red spells.
Oh, straight in Mizzix.
Oh, straight in Mizzix.
Yeah. The finale ones are fantastic.
And there's the 3-mana Druid, which says it has landfall without landfall. Proliferates, so it's like, I'm going to put that straight into Winggrace and then just play any sort of spell,
Crazy.
What's I thinking of? Scapeshift, and then just put all the counters on Winggrace and ultimate him every turn.
We're trying to make it so Planeswalkers don't sound broken.
Yeah. But this is it, like, it's just, there's so much, and proliferate on different ways. Like, instead of just being on casting a spell now, like, we have it on ETB, we have it on playing a land, we have on whenever you cast a non-creature spell, I think.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, if you like proliferate, you'll find a way to do it. Like,
yeah. Well, they have changed proliferate now, haven't they? Because it's no longer you pick the counter, it's you pick the permanent. So if you've got experience counters and an infect counter, you have to do both.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know they changed that.
Yeah.
The more you know.
It's a very weird thing to change. I'm not entirely sure why. It's a
well, it used to be, wasn't it used to be you could only do one? Like, you had to choose.
Yeah, you could only
was
do
my
one
understanding.
type of... You could only...
Yeah.
So if I had an infect and an experience counter, I could pick either one or both.
Yeah.
But now you have to do both for on a permanent. So if, I know, Gideon has a +1/+1 counter on him from being a creature and loyalty counters, you now have to proliferate both, rather than just one or the other. Don't know why you wouldn't do both, but now you have to.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. I think they're just tightening up the language so that there's less ambiguity. For judges and for things like that. So I mean, that's what they did with other things like hexproof and I guess death touch and indestructible and different older keywords being more brought up to speed to make it more in line with what they plan to do with it.
Yes. That's all right. What's your most excited about card, Martin?
The Druid that I just mentioned, but there's also a few little things that I would stick in other decks. Nothing too exciting, not like the big rares, but obviously they're all exciting as well. Just little commons and uncommons that seem so powerful it can stick.
The uncommons and commons inside do seem not just the Planeswalkers, but just genuinely seem very, very good.
And the zombie liking cards for Sidisi, the all zombies have flying and all.
And death touch and trample, because why not?
So Sidisi's going to enjoy buffing the zombies with more lords. So
well, that's it. It's just I haven't seen yet, and this could change since it's only the 16th. Is something that makes the zombie army relevant. It seems like amass was a cool mechanic, but I don't get that feel of an army. It's just like you get a token, and then you just have more and more counters on it.
If it was a mass where, so a mass 1 is you get 1 token, a mass 2 is you get 2 tokens, then you are amassing an army.
Right.
You make one big dude, and it's like,
yeah.
not really how an army works.
And there's the same version with citizens, isn't there? I've seen like 1 or 2 cards.
Yeah, there's some citizen tokens, yeah.
Which are the same thing, but the good guys.
Yeah. Right. I think the design perspective is I think that the card is like a zombie army, and the +1/+1 is meant to represent like an individual in said army. But it's just, unfortunately, I think it's a bit lost on me. It just comes across as like it'll be one very large creature, which is unfortunate.
We have a huge army here. Oh, but it's the mountain over there.
Yeah.
It doesn't quite feel the same.
But it's just like, and also from like a lore perspective, let's say you swing at me with your 2020 army. I can block it with a Pollen Bright Druid.
Yeah.
So one Druid is going to stop 20 zombies.
Seems legit.
Completely legit.
So like if it had Trample, that might push it a bit more in the sense of like it's an overwhelming kind of just like
force
non-stop. So we'll see. Like, I mean, there's still cards to be revealed. There's still stuff to sort of pop out. So this could change very much in the next day or two at this point.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, I think that's just about it for what we wanted to discuss. But thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. We had some nice tea, even if I don't know if I'd call this real tea. It's from a bag, it's not from a box, so it's different.
Oh, that's a tea snobbery right there.
Yes. Well, you had some good tea, but you decided to throw it in a river for some bizarre reason. I can't remember why.
That's the US. We're in Canada.
Are you saying that America and Canada are the same thing?
I mean, your queen is... We have the same queen last time I checked.
Yes, you do. That's embarrassing. We'll cut that out.
We will not.
But yes, thank you very much, Andrew.
You're very welcome.
Pleasure.